if you had to like make a guess, what do you think is the worst holiday movie of all time? And I'm talking about like since the beginning of telling Christmas stories, like around a fire when that's all there was to do.
Well, you know that I feel It's a Wonderful Life. It's the worst Christmas movie.
Yeah, and you know you're
time.
completely outnumbered on that classic. No, the answer is Love Actually.
How dare you?
The worst movie. Sometimes I don't even think it's fair just to say worst Christmas movie, just to say worst movie.
Wow.
Worst movie.
Lisa Christiansen, those are fighting words. And
Yeah.
we're going to save those fighting words for our first live taping at the Rio Theater.
Yes, I am very excited about this. And as Pop This listeners know, this is a perennial debate.
An annual fight, if you will.
It's just something we enjoy doing every year.
This time, we are only fighting about Love Actually. Is it the best or worst Christmas movie of all time?
Yeah, well.
So joining us for our live recording, wonderful comedian and author Alicia Tobin, also recent guest on the podcast.
My side.
And also senior programmer and writer Rachel Fox from the Rio Theater. And on my side.
What did you do to get her to go on your
I'll
side?
never tell.
Yeah, I bet you won't.
So, Sunday, December 15th, doors at 6 p.m. We're going to do the live podcast recording at 6:30, and then at 7:45, a full screening of Love Actually.
And I think half the audience might leave, but they can come with me somewhere.
Wow, I can't wait. I think it's going to be fantastic.
It is. It's a Christmas holiday tradition. You'll want to make one of your own.
I can't wait to fight with you.
I'm ready.
I feel it in my fingers.
I feel it in my... No, you're not going to... No.
You're on my side now.
No.
You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
When do you decide, or do you really make a decision about like starting to do a fashion trend? Like
As late as possible.
Yeah, because all of a sudden now I really enjoy walking. It's not new. It's probably really old, but it's been more shifting in and out. But that, wearing your coat over your shoulders, like don't put your arms through. Yeah.
Like just so as if you've got the perfect shoulders that can wear a coat like a hanger?
Yeah, just, some people do it with like a smaller jacket.
Uh-huh.
I think it's more probably very California where you don't need a coat at all, but you like the look of it.
Yeah.
So you don't actually put your arms through it.
Yes.
But then I'm always trying to figure out when is it really affected, or just you making a fashion choice, or is it possible to not be affected?
Well, so I'm going to say that I actually think I saw this a lot. Like I was just in New York, and it's a real thing with women wearing furs.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, I don't have a fur.
I mean, I know no one owns a fur, but like fancy women in New York seem to still own furs, and they wear it sort of draped over their shoulders and I've always seen that as like sort of an affectation in furs, obviously, of the insanely rich.
Yeah.
It's a certain kind of
I guess
fancy
that's why I'm reluctant
person
to do it, because I'm not of the... See, I'm more of a watching Housewives.
Yes.
And it has trickled through the different universes.
Of course.
Of the Housewives, which...
Also insanely rich, some of them.
Some of them want us to think that.
Yes, of course.
So they're very pleased that you have decided that.
But there's an affluence to the gesture.
Well, I think it's meant. You're right. When I think about it, I just sort of thought it looked kind of elegant or something.
But that's what they want us to think.
I know. Or it's that way. You know how you see that old footage of like James Brown on stage, and he would always shrug off those capes and things. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm always like imagining. It's like a two-pronged approach here.
Yeah.
I'm imagining I would just look elegant, and then I would just shrug, and somebody will catch it.
Oh, well, I mean, if you've got people doing the dirty work of catching the cape, there's definitely an affluence to the gesture.
It also seems to me that there's no way to do any, you can't do that and be practical. Like I couldn't wear a bag. You can't really do anything else with your arms.
What about tying it around your waist? Is that in the same category when you wrap your jacket or sweater around the waist?
Not around the
not
waist. If you do a polo knot around the shoulders.
Oh, that's,
with the tennis sweater.
That's very preppy, though.
That's very preppy. Yeah. I think around the waist, no one gets away with anything
well, no, if you're
around
in
the waist.
FUBAR and you've just taken off your checked Mac jacket, your plaid jacket, I mean, that's a good look.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's just because I have the rounded shoulders of a linebacker, but I've always been actually a little bit envious of those who can just wear a jacket over their shoulders and not have it fall off. This is a weird, long-standing thing that I have thought about.
Oh, I didn't know.
I know, that's the wildest part. It's like, who knew you would just like tap into a weird insecurity of mine? But it's not like a real deep insecurity. It's just like a sort of a funny
like one of the average insecurities we all carry around.
One of the average numerous insecurities all of us carry with us on a daily basis.
What's my favorite one from Mean Girls when she's like, oh my God, my hairline's so, what is it? My forehand's so big? And then, do you remember that?
I think it's her hairline.
Is it her hairline is something? And it was like when Lindsay Lohan is just arriving and she's still very natural and happy with being whoever she is, and she was just intrigued by that anyone noticed. Like, how do you have a sense of where it should be?
Yeah, and yet all of us do know. Like, if your hairline is too far back, it looks like you've sort of, like, I don't know, you were a patient in like a 1950s asylum or something. It's like you've just been.
You feel like saying to help your friend, or like, oh my God, my nose is so big, and you're like, well, it's not as weird as your hairline.
Wow, this is given everyone. I mean, everyone now, feel free to comment on the roundness of my shoulders and come up to me and just be like, it doesn't look like you could keep a cape on without tying it.
People always have these very strange things where they'll say something like, oh, I hate my feet, and I'm like, who sees your feet? Like, how is this a thing that you even have a concept of what a foot should look like? Like, just wear a fuller sandal if you hate it. Like, is it that? Or whatever. I don't know.
Where am I to get this fuller sandal, Lisa? What is
I don't even know if that's a thing. I just made it up like that. But, the ones that aren't so foot revealing. I don't know. Is that an expression?
Oh my God. One of the funniest things that ever, I think, I can't remember exactly who this was with, but I was going shoe shopping with a friend and they were like, oh, I can't have a shoe that shows too much toe cleavage. And I was like, what even are you talking about? But then once she explained to me what toe cleavage was, I was like, all right, I get it actually. Like if you're in a shoe that is too like shallow at the front and too much of the like webbings of your toes sort of like show, it's a lot of toe cleavage. And I had never thought about this before. But now, whenever I try on like a weird shoe that might like, I don't know,
you're
just
seeing it now.
Putting on a Mary Jane or whatever, I'm suddenly like, oh, okay, I get it. I get toe cleavage.
I remember being a teenager reading this magazine. It was how to hide figure flaws, and it was just the point where I was starting to want to hate everything, right? And this one,
those are nightmare.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, let's see what I've got here. And one of them was, do you have big calves? And this was the advice for you. It was, I always remember this. It was like, it just said, wear pants in summer, boots in winter.
Wow. Wow. How dare you show an ounce of calf anywhere.
Oh,
you
dear. That's horrifying.
Unbridled, thick-calved freak.
That's not helping me with that's just like, why not just get me to wear like a sack or something? Like, that's not advice.
I mean, truly, that is basically what every fashion advice was for fat women for a long time. I will say this as a lifelong fat girl, then fat woman. And that maturity was beautiful, by the way. And just always so colorfully dressed in what people thought was like, you know what's smart for a fat woman? Give her as many appliques as possible along the neckline
Baroness
of a
von
sweater.
Sketch did this. Do you remember that? Sing this one?
I've never seen Baroness von Sketch.
Yeah, the woman is asking, oh, for God. We've had this conversation.
I know, I've failed you.
But the fat woman's like, I want to try this on, and it's just like a black skirt.
Yeah.
And she comes back with this thing putting all these colors, and she's like,
bedazzled.
Yeah, and she's like, that's not the same one. Oh no, when it gets past size 12 or whatever, we add these things. Why?
Yeah. No, I've asked myself a lot. Anyway, but it's a wild adventure.
Oh, it is.
It is. And honestly, this is weirdly enough a pretty good segue into what we're going to talk
Female
about.
insecurity. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think let's just, bring that up. Yeah. But en français.
En français. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
And you're listening to Pop This.
Bonjour.
Oh, wow. Well done, Lisa. Yes. I just want to, because our wonderful guest you've already heard her, I'd like us to introduce you off the top. Do you feel okay with that, Lisa? And
me? Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Do you feel okay with that, Selina?
Yes. We.
Good work. Selina Crammond is the director of programming at DOCSA Documentary Film Festival, Western Canada's largest documentary film festival. She's also a writer. Just did a wonderful profile in Monte Cristo. Great job. Fantastic. And is a musician who plays in Supermoon. She plays drums. Supermoon, one of my favorite local bands.
Yeah, agreed.
Great.
Yeah.
So great. She will also be introducing the Agnes Varda retrospective on opening night at the Cinematheque. And so we're going to talk about Agnes Varda. Welcome.
Thank you.
So thrilled to have you. It really should have happened before now.
Yes, it should. But
here we are.
You in as our foremost expert on Agnes Varda. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of her documentaries, and I haven't seen all of her work, so to be considered an expert is a bit overwhelming. But
you're
I'll
the
do my
Pop
best.
This expert.
You're the Pop This expert. I'm really excited. We're going to be talking about Cléo from 5 to 7. A feature film, not a documentary. So why are we doing this?
The retrospective here in Vancouver at the Cinematheque.
It starts on December 12th.
It does, yes. And because it's a big hole in our discussions here.
It really is.
Feminist filmmaking. I mean, that's a pretty big one. I think when she died recently, there was it was like in the last year, wasn't it? Yeah. Quite an outpouring of emotion and film retrospectives, and I think for a lot of people, a lot of women who would say that they love film, I think there was probably a real learning curve there of how much she contributed to things that we have allowed men to own that particular genre.
Yeah.
The new wave cinema. I think a lot of us were all, Jean-Luc Godard and Louis Malle and Francois Truffaut. Those are the guys. Guess who they learned from?
Yeah.
As it always will be.
As it always
will be.
Sera. Oh my God. Yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah. So who is Agnes Varda? Agnes Varda was a Belgian-born French film director, photographer, and artist. Her work was pioneering for and central to the development of the widely influential French New Wave film movement of the 50s and 60s. Her films focused on achieving documentary realism, addressing feminist issues, and producing other social commentary with a distinctive experimental style. She passed away in March earlier this year.
Oh, it was just this year?
This year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we're at the end of the year. So
Yeah. It feels longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who follows, like, sort of, because we already had that discussion about fashion. I think that series of T-shirts with the directors, the Agnes Varda T-shirt, and seeing Greta Gerwig in that. I mean, I hate to say that, but there were a lot of people that probably were like, "What?"
Yeah.
If whatever your introduction is to someone's great work, maybe it is going to come from you, following this younger filmmaker and her saying to you, "No, I'm standing on the shoulders of others, and here's who you need to look up."
Yeah, and that's important. That's the kind of stuff we need to sort of like see us acknowledge who are sort of mentors and who are like inspiration, and particularly like even just the basic things of like right now there's a lot of a wonderful sort of like Twitter meme going around about like how the top 10 podcasts of the year on this list are all by men, and specifically a lot of white men. And people are like, hey, guys, if there's like an easy way to sort of like point out a way to like sort of diversify this list and get like more people of color and more women of color and more queer women, like all sorts of folks, the way to do that is to talk about those folks on your podcast. I don't see Joe Rogan doing that anytime soon.
Conan O'Brien?
But I mean, it's just...
Who saved podcasting?
Oh, yes.
Remember that?
Yes, he did. That was
He
just
did
this
that?
year. Just this year.
Didn't even know it needed saving, but he did it anyway.
So wild.
Wow, what a hero.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Conan. Just acknowledging that other people exist. So, yay.
And also, it's refreshing to not have to look up her like horrible sex scandal or some kind of demeaning incident throughout a career.
I would be super interested in Agnes's sex scandal. Is there?
Yeah.
Is that just me?
I actually tried Googling some of this because I'm curious. I'm
Yeah.
a little curious, but
She was
there's
married
no
to
drama.
this filmmaker for years and years and years. He was very
Jacques
supportive.
Demy, who
He
was-
was very supportive of her career, like really, so.
And she was extremely supportive of his career
Yeah.
too, which I think is
Partnership
important to
is-
mention.
Yeah. Partnership is pretty important to the creative process.
And just and working right up to the end, and just a real model of just enjoying what you do and not ever saying you're too old or too young or whatever for anything. She was still making movies, right? And still talking about her movies, and just a going force.
I love it.
Yeah, she's pretty incredible. I think I was reading an interview with her, one of the last interviews she gave, and up until the very end, she's talking about trying to figure out what cinema is. She's trying to, she's literally asking that question throughout every single film.
Yeah.
What is a film? And I think that approach was totally dismissed up until recently, I think. And you can tell she's asking that question throughout the making of Cléo, which was like her second feature, I think.
Wow, yeah.
So,
That's such a great way to approach art, without sort of taking any kind of ownership over a form, but continuing to interrogate what it can be.
yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of those male French New Wave filmmakers were also taking that approach to cinema, but just by nature of having the circle of support and in the festival circuit and funders, they just... It doesn't come off as sincere. I mean, I like a lot of those French New Wave directors, male directors as well, but there is something some sort of truthfulness in her experimentation that I think surpasses a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone goes through sort of phases with the movie Breathless. Especially with Jean Seberg.
Yeah.
Just this iconic, what we consider to be this iconic French beauty who was actually American and in the film is American.
Yeah.
But then, I think at one time you see it when you're quite young and you're like, oh, that criminal. Oh, he's so sexy and scary. And then you're like, oh, that's a really bad idea. Like, what is she doing? And by the end, you're just like, I'm over those films. I'm over those men. I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how Varda, when you compare, something like Breathless to Cléo, or even the film she made after called Happiness, the sarcasm is a little more overt, or the kind of satirical nature of those men and masculinity it's overt, but it's still not obvious. If that makes
I
sense.
mean, I suppose in Breathless he was a bit bumbling.
Yeah.
He wasn't a good criminal.
Yeah.
But there was a certain sort of rogue attractiveness to him, which, I think is something everyone gets over eventually.
Well, I'm very excited because for this film, what I did was get a free trial of the Criterion collection, and so now I can watch all her films before it expires. If just making room for that in my schedule in the next couple weeks. Should we talk about Cléo? Because we haven't actually said.
Oh yeah.
What the movie's about?
What the movie's about? Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, it's a 1962 French left bank film by Agnes Varda. Corinne Marchand is Cléo, a beautiful singer and glamorous young woman about town, kind of like us three here.
Yep.
In a kind of real time, we follow her eventful Paris whirl from 5 to 7 one evening. Traditionally, that's the moment for married men to meet their mistresses. I didn't. That is wild.
That is a wonderful, amazing information.
Yeah. But here it's, turning the page, the time Cléo must wait for the results of cancer tests, uneasily keeping an ear open for news of Edith Piaf's recent illness. Cléo befriends a young soldier, Antoine Bourset, about to ship out to Algeria. Does he face his own death sentence? And when they together hear the results of Cléo's test, it is an extraordinary, ambiguous moment. The Parisian streetscapes are beautiful and thrilling, and the tarot card scene at the beginning, combined with overheard fragments of anxious city lives, gives this something of a T.S. Eliot. A farcically comic film within a film sequence shows Jean-Luc Godard in larky cameo, not so very different from the wacky, childlike quality of his own early works. And that's by Peter Bradshaw at The Guardian.
I really, I had never seen this movie. I'd had it recommended to me, and I really loved it. I really appreciated. It's so weird. It's so unusual. But I just think, like, particularly opening with a prolonged tarot card sequence.
In color.
Yeah.
But
and then the film, the black and white. Yeah.
The bird's eye view is color, but like the film itself is in black and white. I don't know if that was specifically just a creative decision or there was some sort of like other option as like a sort of technical force or whatever. But yeah, I really loved it. Had you seen Cléo before, Selina?
I had seen it many years ago, but I didn't remember the details, and so I was excited to rewatch it. I just I downloaded a copy, and
That's okay. That's
I'm really excited that
I'm
have
Criterion
it now
too, so
and it's going to be screening at the Cinematheque for those who haven't seen it yet. It's good to come out and support our local cinema.
How did you feel about it?
I really enjoyed watching it. I think, because I was much younger when I watched it. It was probably in like first year film school many years ago now, but it felt like watching a brand new film. I think mostly because her approach is just wildly inventive. It's so bizarre, but it works, and I think it comes together by the end, sort of in a classical narrative way. But at first, it takes you a while to get your bearings. But I thought it was really special. You can tell that she's still figuring out again what is cinema. I think literally she didn't have any cinema training. She started off as a photographer and a writer, and so you can kind of see her just trying to invent what she thinks a movie should be, and I think there's something really fun and inspiring about that. I mean, there's so much to say, but
we'll go through it. But your first thoughts are great. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. How about you?
I hadn't seen it.
Yeah,
I apologize.
No, I hadn't seen it either.
And I feel terrible. But what I thought was interesting for me is because I have seen other, French New Wave films, and less importantly, I've seen so many satires of French New Wave films.
Interesting.
Just like things that are mocking it, like mockumentaries or something. And so it was strange to see, like, part of me was almost, it felt comical because, like, dialogue that was just purposely odd, like you said, just strange and getting your bearings, right? But that's to become such a cliche. Of and I mean, when you read about the film, that they are exploring existentialism, which at the time didn't seem as, and I don't want to laugh at existentialism, but it's sort of, we kind of mock people now for being so inside their heads that they sound kind of ridiculous, right? That everything's a quandary, and how do I know things? And you're just, oh my God, it's not that hard. But you know what I mean? We've come to sort of make a little bit of fun of that.
But we at least this film gives her like a genuine existential sort of crisis.
Absolutely.
I think she is playing with those stereotypes as well, and I think she's very aware of her peers.
I think so too, and male peers, yes, in particular, because I think sort of that one of those like famous relationships we all know about is Simone de Beauvoir and Jean Sartre, right? Jean-Paul Sartre and his existentialism and writing those, plays, which again, at one time in your life, you're like, this is really deep and meaningful, and then later on you're, oh my, right? Like, you go through these strange moments of seeing that, even that relationship, right? Which is so tortured. And I think in some people's hands it's this beautiful romance, in other people's hands it's like a very depressing situation that she found herself in. So I think watching this movie just brought up so many things that I didn't have a source for.
Yeah.
And now I go, oh, okay, this is where all of this started.
Well, it is really giving you a reference point that, if you haven't had it till now, which I hadn't either, then you're just like, the aha of it all.
Yes, that's a very good way to put it. Yeah.
Just like, and because you can know a lot of things in pop culture that are referencing something, but you've never seen that original. And I feel like this does answer a lot of those things for me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking the whole time. And what I also really loved about it was the sound.
Yeah, the music
is really beautiful, and just the way that I haven't done any this is off the top of my head remembering, but does the French New Wave have like similarities to the Dogma, where you have to use the light that's in the room and the sounds that are there?
I think that's part of the tradition, but she, I think, was really inventive in pushing forward with using non-traditional or non-professional actors and and location sound. So that was, I'm not sure where in the timeline that happened, but I think that is a part of it. Because I really loved that. I
really felt like I almost got this snapshot of what Paris would have been like at that time, right? Which is the snippets of conversation in the cafes.
Yeah.
And just the way the cars and the terrifying trying to cross an intersection, hey?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, hello, crosswalks.
Well, it's cool because she uses almost every mode of transportation. You follow her while she's walking.
Yes. Yeah,
she's
the
on
bus.
In a vehicle. So you do get to see Paris from all these different angles.
Right. And her friend, I don't really know how to drive a car. Let's do it. What?
That car looked like it was about to fall apart.
I know.
That car was, I also thought it was, the only thing we didn't see her on was like a bicycle, which I feel was
that's funny.
It's a very Parisian way to get around.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved so much about the sound was that because she's a famous singer, sort of. She's only got like 4 or 5 hits or whatever at this point. Is that she's always going into places, and if someone doesn't play her song for her, she plays it herself. And I honestly, just the hubris and the fragility of Cléo is a wonderful thing to behold. Like, I was making notes to myself while watching it and talking to you a little bit, Lisa, this morning when we ran into each other.
Yeah.
And I was just saying, like, she's constantly turning into different versions of herself. Like, she doesn't know what direction she's being pulled in, whether it's, like, in her own mind or, like, external forces. Like, she's just always pivoting into a different version of herself. And it's wild.
Yeah. 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 And when she just takes that giant hair piece out.
Oh, I love that part.
Yeah. I don't know if I actually thought about, but it was quite an ornate hairstyle.
Yeah, I was mesmerized with it from the beginning.
Yes,
thinking like, how does that work? How?
Yeah.
So when she took it off, I felt relieved. Actually, I was like, wow.
But I also
I think so does she. I think it's supposed to symbolize that sort of like unpinning, because she has just like stormed out from her male colleagues who sort of infantilize her and also put her on a pedestal. Like,
that's a weird dynamic.
Well, but I think it happens a lot.
She's running around like a child in that little weird robe that her assistant put on her when she was hanging and doing her exercises.
Yeah, I think it's her maid.
Maid and okay.
But I think that's the dynamic of sort of these of the starlet woman at the time, or what they felt was like, this is what glamorous women do. They perform a function that only they could do, which is sing beautifully, because beautiful women have to be able to sing beautifully. And they're sort of ornaments for our genius.
Yes.
And this is, as she sort of like they know that she's sort of waiting for this bad news, but they want her to sing this tragic song because she can bring an extra level of despair because she's so tragically beautiful.
And she does bring that level of despair.
However, we've come to also
Yeah.
learn that she's a bit of a drama queen, and then when they're all like, well, what else? What's wrong with you this week?
But we don't know that for sure she's a drama queen. We could see that as, like, she's legitimately waiting to find out if she has cancer. Like, we could see that as, like, she is continually being gaslit by the people in her life.
True.
Who just want to, like, hold her, who keep her performing, keep her earning money, keep letting her make them famous.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that was my reading of it. Like, even though she is definitely sort of stylized a bit ridiculously, and she is a very dramatic person, like, she strikes me as the kind of woman who is, again, like, in that starlet role, and therefore that's her box in life.
But that's also my cliche idea of French women. You know what I mean in these movies? They're always
perfect, like bobs.
Yeah, they're always very. They're always they're nervous, and then they're flighty, and then they love you, and then they don't, and then they run, and then they stop. Like that image of that French woman. It was like, again, that's what I was saying, like the source material of saying like, and I think that's what she was creating with this character too, was with her, right? She was very vain, and these men, it's like she's a magnet, right? No matter where she went, they would come out of these corners, like they could see her coming.
Yeah.
I mean,
they hide in doorways and
yeah,
walk
exactly. And they're just everywhere. Yet she's always tempestuous, and it's almost as if she was super friendly. They'd get bored because of that courting ritual of, you must show you hate me, and then I'll keep pursuing you, and then...
But I thought like maybe this was like Agnes's actual, like a satire of what those men have created.
Right. Yes.
That's kind of how I interpret it. And it's also,
yeah.
I think it's a painting a nuanced feminist portrait, because I think, like you say, I see it both ways. I was equally annoyed with her. I had as much sympathy as I had annoyance towards her character. And I think that's a really important way to portray women, you know, and it's...
Especially in 1962 in like French New Wave cinema. Like I thought it was so fascinating to have her like have these like dreary thoughts and these big moments, and then suddenly turn to the mirror and be like, I am so pretty.
Yeah.
And
Well, the part that made me kind of dislike her off the bat was the way she treated her maid or her assistant. Because within that relationship, you sense a power dynamic instantly. And she even thinks to herself in that scene early on in the cafe, oh, you're so annoying and entitled. And so obviously it's a part of her personality, I think. But then
no one takes her seriously, right? The
exactly. So then...
maid's not concerned at all. Like, this is her.
And we see the power dynamic sort of flip a tiny bit. It's not really like a true power dynamic flip. Yeah. Because obviously she can employ this woman, but she also, I think she actually needs this woman to survive.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing. I think it's easy for us to sort of put beautiful women on a pedestal and think their life is easy and not cast them any empathy or sympathy. And I certainly found myself kind of aware of my own kind of reaction to her. But yeah, I don't know.
I was more jealous of the model, that sculptor model there. I just love how she meets her and she's naked. Yeah. She pulls on a pair of panties and a dress and they're out the door. I'm
going to visit her boyfriend who's running
the theater. Cinema. I mean, that was almost like all like just seamless, right?
Yeah.
Like and we're off.
Yeah.
Like literally you have two garments on. You didn't even look in the mirror and we're out the door. You pulled some shoes on.
It's a real dream life. Like and that's sort of one of the things that is also like I think about like who her friends are and who Cléo has in her life. And so this friend is sort of concerned about her, but it's not like she's still got to go meet her boyfriend. Like she's got.
Well, and also when she dropped her off, she didn't know where she lived, and that's very pointed out in the movie, right? Yeah. That like you live here, and saying later that I don't know where she lives. So you're right. Her female friendships are.
Yeah.
But there's also kind of a beauty in that fleetingness, I think, and that she does find some liberation in that friendship because she's not so attached to her everyday life.
Well,
and she's not. She like this woman is truly free in her beauty or lack thereof in a way that Cléo could never be free. Like she says, like, I could never be naked like this. I could never, all these different things that, and this set of rules that she has sort of, obviously are sort of enforced upon her by like, patriarchal standards, but are also ones that she is choosing to sort of be defined by as well. Yeah. Because she never really pushes against those. She sort of falls into them and continues to sort of, I don't know, make them her own little prison as she goes along in her life.
Yeah, I think she's embraced a lot of that, like the attention. So,
the attention's fascinating to me.
It is, yeah.
Like when she does acknowledge something at one point about how much power she has as a pretty person, and I feel like that is a really brilliant statement on Varda's part of like, so that thing that we talked about before about like this idea that pretty women are on a pedestal and therefore have no problems. Like obviously that's yes and no, and like obviously like we all sort of know what our relationships are to sort of beauty, but we also know the privilege of beauty and what that sort of like gives you access to in your life. And I feel like we continue to see sort of like the futility of most of the men around her who are just so undone by something as basic as a beautiful person in a nice outfit. Like
that's a reoccurring theme in her work, actually.
Really?
That's great.
Just bored of the men that just keep falling for this over and over and over again.
Well, Happiness, the second feature the third feature she made just after this one is a good follow-up on
that theme?
Thinking about those themes. Yeah.
I can't wait.
But there's also, too, with that, and you could tell with her, too, there's an element of knowing it won't last. Mm-hmm. Like, this is the...
Well, that's the whole cancer.
Yes, this is...
Fear of death, fear of being ugly.
The obsoleteness of, will I be able to sing again? Will I have another? Like, she's holding on to something that she doesn't even know what that is. And so that she will always need to have some kind of outside confirmation that she's still got it.
Yeah, worthy. Yeah. I think that's why my favorite scene in the movie is when she's walking through the cafe and she puts her own song on again, but she realizes nobody's listening.
Yes. Yeah.
That's such a great scene because up until then, she's constantly looking at herself in the mirror and not doing the self-reflection that she really should be doing. And it isn't until she notices people aren't listening to her. And it's a really beautiful scene, I think.
Oh, yeah. I do. I thought that that really captivated me. And again, all the conversations. And I think it's an interesting film for really wanting you to be like that she had a conscious idea of creating that moment, like when they're in the taxi with all the news.
Yeah.
Because the war in Algiers keeps coming up a lot.
Yeah.
And so as we were saying, like her futile life, and here is this man saying, I don't, my fear is dying for nothing. Mm-hmm. Which, good point, because a lot of people outside of France probably, or Algeria, remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's an interesting thing that Varda does by, making it political without making it political in a way. I'm curious to know, like, what she was thinking there, because it is sort of vague still.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But she wants you to know that that's what this day is, and that, Edith Piaf news, right? Mm-hmm. That was so strange the way it was delivered too, that she had surgery and walked today. Like it just gives you a sense of how hugely important like a singer is to the culture as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like this one singer that people, like, it makes the news that she stood up after an operation.
On par with like a war.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the female taxi driver.
I was really interested by that.
And they were interested in that too.
I was super interested by like a woman taxi driver. I thought that was like...
Even now, that's what? Like, I think in my lifetime, I probably had 3 female taxi drivers.
Yeah, it's very few and far between.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite scene in the film, Lisa?
I was actually going to say the one in the cafe. I mean, I was intrigued by her exercises, just hanging off that bar. And she timed it, apparently. Like, there was a 30-second hanging from the bar exercise.
Yeah, that looked like a mental health exercise.
It was a very...
the cigarette hanging out of the mouth while you're, like, exercising. And
peculiar. And I think... and this is weird, because obviously... 1962 movie, we can do spoilers, but the very odd ending where she's looking for the doctor to get her cancer results, and he pulls up in a convertible. I guess he's heading out for the weekend. Doesn't even know who she's with, and just blurts out, "That chemo's gonna save you. See ya."
Yeah, I know. And then there you go.
And
the ending.
Yeah, and then she felt at peace. Like, suddenly she announces, "I'm at peace." But I don't know what term in like film there is where it's just you're building. I mean, it's anticlimactic, I guess, would be but there seemed more to it than just being anticlimactic. It's like she had some sort of, I guess, wanted to send this woman on this complete journey of crazy all day to have the doctor just be, "Have a good weekend. We're going to fix you with some chemo. Bye-bye." And he just... darts off.
Yeah, I love that. It's part of her amateur, I say amateur in quotes, but her amateur approach to filmmaking, because it's just like, all right, we're just going to end it now.
Yeah, it was just so funny.
It's a great storytelling. Like, it's not great storytelling. Like,
it subverts what you think
but it's storytelling
should be, which I think is really cool.
I just thought they would sit down together or in this, but the way he just pulls up and
well, it's another powerful dude being super cavalier about a pretty significant aspect of her life.
Yeah.
Well, I think
And God can only imagine what chemo was like in
imagine what the
1962.
chemo's like in
No,
62 with
all her
that
hair's
man?
gonna come out. I mean, I don't know if she's.
But
I
with
guess
that
she's got
man,
the,
like,
she's got the wig. So yeah.
But like, oh my gosh, yeah. Like, I mean, but I guess like that sort of peaceableness. But I mean, even going back to like the tarot reading at the beginning, you know, the tarot reader is a little bit mean. Like,
not good at her job, if you can call being a tarot card reader a job.
I mean,
but
she
yeah.
did predict pretty much everything.
Yes, she
No,
did.
she did predict it. I just thought like her delivery continued to be, I don't know, like just a little on the harsh side.
Yeah, a bit cold and clinical.
Yes. And not in the way that you typically would sort of like interact. But the dark humor of Cléo leaving in tears and her going to like open the door to talk to her husband and be like, the girl is doomed, basically. Like,
yeah, he's just reading the paper.
I was just like, wow, this movie, we are going to see some like really, really grim humor throughout the whole thing, and I feel like it followed up on its promise of that opening scene.
Mm-hmm. There's such a contrast too between like the superstition and then just atheists, full on just, you know.
Oh, you can't buy new clothes on Tuesdays?
Yeah, like
or go out into the world on Tuesdays, basically, or wear new clothes.
I also just love the idea that's a winter hat. You know, it's just okay. Like, I love just the fact that there's a hat shop.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would get a hat now.
Well, there is one hat shop on Granville Island.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been there in a long time.
Yeah, just a heads up.
Okay, heads up.
Heads up. Oh,
sorry.
That's pretty good humor. No, I did anyone else because and obviously it's like because of her background as a photographer, that's one of the things that the Cinematech program guide says, you know, Varda has a background as a photojournalist and brought a photographer's eye to her cinema. She worked in both documentary and drama. Her innovative films often straddled the boundaries between the two, setting fictional characters and stories in highly realist documentary-like settings, and often employing non-professional actors filmed in actual locations. It's a really beautiful eye that she has, even from like just her second film, and particularly from like being a sort of self-taught filmmaker. Like it's a pretty remarkable gift that she seems to have that she's working with.
Yeah, and it's complicated. Like, she's filming a lot of window scenes, a lot of mirrors, and I don't know, I think she pulled it off really beautifully. One of my favorite scenes at the ending, just because we were talking about it, is when it sort of switches perspective as he's driving away, and you can see the fast pull out of the camera. It kind of zooms, he speeds away, but you're seeing it from behind, you're looking at her from behind the camera, and this really unnervingly fast camera speed. Do you guys remember that part?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is odd, but it weirdly works. And I think because of the framing and the way that it's positioned. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I that ending was not what I mean, I didn't know how it was going to end, actually. I mean, I suppose the rom-com in me hopes her and the Algerian soldier get together, or whatever. He's not a French soldier, but...
I was so happy they didn't. And actually, that guy, apparently, Antoine, was dating Agnes Varda before.
Oh.
That was her first, I guess, relationship, and they have a son together. Or a daughter, maybe? Or they have a child together. So that's... The unprofessional actor, you know, in her world that she introduced into that role.
I could just honestly, the clothes in this are so beautiful. Like the men in those baggy pants with those kind of those shirts. Like even how handsome that guy was, just showing up there with his proper trousers and white shirt. It was
Cleo's
so sexy.
first dress,
so sexy.
That polka dot dress.
What
was that black?
That the maid takes off of her and then puts back on again?
I want
it looks
something
to me like a
that,
belt.
I can just add to my
Well, it's like a
dress.
super cool belt that like sucks her in, but also is a fashion piece. Like I like it.
It drapes all the way down.
Yes. Oh, and it has like a full side skirt.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just
Very
the way she walked in it. It was the way it flowed and looked so beautiful. And so when he said it was the first day of summer, I kept saying that was June, so that's June 20th or June 21st, right?
Yeah.
Because I've been to Paris in July and August, and it's stinking hot.
Yeah.
Like
no,
unbearable.
Gross, yeah.
And so it had a real it did have a real fresh feel to like the way, the way that everyone looked like it was, when it's like summer but not hot yet.
Yeah.
So you were wearing your summer dresses, but you're not feeling oppressed or like trying to like, open up a fire hydrant or whatever happens in urban settings usually.
Do you think the 5 to 7 framing like worked well?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's a curious part of the day. I mean, I didn't know anything about the mistresses.
The Mistresses was a surprise to me as well.
Yes, I usually meet mine around 8. That's Canadian hours, But no, when you think of 5 to 7, it is a kind of weird sort of, it's not, your kind of work day over and what happens next. So that it is a kind of a flex time.
Yeah.
Is it also golden hour for shooting?
Yeah,
film?
usually,
it
yeah.
is.
So
Yeah.
that
Well, in
works.
the summer,
Maybe not so much in the summer.
But definitely it's fall and spring. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, it's first day of summer, so it might have been. Yeah, but there is something about that time of day that is kind of weird. Like, it's sort of empty. The streets start to empty out. And I think especially in like Paris, it probably gets busy again around 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. When people are just sort of, straying
dinner.
home. So I like that a lot. And I love the little subheadings of what time it is.
Yeah, I love that too, and who you're going to be hanging out with.
Yeah, like there was chapters in her own story. Mm-hmm. I really did like that a lot.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, and I'm just a sucker for that real-time filming because I think it really places you inside the characters.
And I think also it's funny because this film is from 1962, but I feel like that's one of my senses of how I would prefer to watch a lot of times a TV show that's going to try and take on a long story. Because I would rather watch it in episodes and not have to see too much, and like think about watching all of like someone's life in 2 hours. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You're basically like, every complaint having to watch that Freddie Mercury.
Well, biopics, are really hard to do.
It's just like a Wikipedia page and you get 1 second of them saying something and it's stupid.
Yeah. And you have to make all these leaps in judgment.
So a 2-hour
this
thing makes so much sense for storytelling because then you can actually get into this moment and feel like you're part of it.
Yeah, and just realize how much can change within one person's psychology in a span of 2 hours is pretty profound. And I don't think that's outlandish. Like, I think that those kinds of realizations happen like that in real people. It doesn't take a lifetime sometimes to come to change your perspective on something.
Well, and because her head is so, thoughts of death are going through her head all the time. It's definitely whoever you're with, that you're going to be bouncing off these ideas with, and everyone's going to react quite differently.
Well, I'm curious as to whether there's a version of this film that was specifically 2 hours to more, sort of accurately mimic the time structure that we're set up with, because that half hour that we lose, I didn't follow the timelines closely enough to sort of like figure out what we do sort of like we don't see and what Varda doesn't show us. So is there something in this like half hour of missing time that we are supposed to infer that is like, is it a particular or was it a particular like choice on her part creatively, or was it just that she more had a 90-minute film and didn't care about it mimicking like a 2-hour structure?
Yeah, I'm inclined to think it was intentional, but I can't remember either. What is the last time that we're left with? Because I'm inclined to think that maybe she just left a half an hour at the end for her
smart.
to fill up her time and her
Yeah.
reflection. It would justify the crazy abrupt ending.
Yeah. It's a
Where
nice
she's
garden.
Yeah.
Where she's just like left with herself and her own devices and yeah, that's a good point.
She's not with him still?
No, he goes off. Or she was going to take him to the train station. Right?
Yeah,
So
but she
maybe-
doesn't. They're just sitting in the garden at the end, right?
Yeah.
And she's like,
so maybe that's
so well
how it
maintained.
ends.
Oh yeah, so maybe they.
But I like that idea a lot, because you're right. It would take about half an hour to get to the train station, probably.
Yeah. To just a little housekeeping here. Varda was awarded an honorary Palme d'Or at Cannes in 2015 for her career's work. The first woman and only the fourth filmmaker after Woody Allen, Clint Eastwood, and Bernardo Bertolucci to be so honored. 2 years later, she became the first female director to receive an honorary Academy Award for Lifetime Achievement. She remained sardonic about such laurels and her status in 2016, noting that the restoration and re-release of Jane B., Par, Agnes V., and Kung Fu Master, 2 underappreciated films she had made in 1988 with Jane Birkin, was proving an event of only modest proportions. Varda remarked, "I can get the Palme d'Or, but I can't get exhibition." That's from the Cinematheque's program guide. Oh, man.
Yeah.
To think that Clint Eastwood.
Ugh.
I mean, I'm not happy with any of those things, but that guy he only became a filmmaker, like... And anyway, yeah. I'm not saying anything that anyone isn't.
What do you mean? $1 Million Baby doesn't hold up? Or what about the Gran Torino hold up against... yeah, this is ridiculous.
It's unbelievably insulting.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I feel like we read the Padma Lakshmi book, and every year she had to deal with Salman Rushdie disappointed that he didn't get the Booker.
Yeah.
Every year. Every year she'd be like, "Oh no, not this again."
Yeah.
I wonder how Agnes Varda felt every few years, because I'm like, what do you guys want me to do? I created an entire genre of filmmaking. Like an entire genre of filmmaking, and I still can't get anything.
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah, I think that has to do a lot with just American sort of distribution networks and the power.
Well, the French,
and the
obviously, that's the Palme d'Or at Cannes. That's French, right? I mean, they didn't even respect her. It seems.
Talking
You're
about
referring to the other part as well.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's unfortunate. And I mean, the thing that I love about her is she's maintained a very real sense of integrity throughout the whole thing. Like, she actively talks about not wanting to make films that are in the Star Network and films about real people, everyday people, and I think by doing that, she's actively kind of rejecting these institutions.
You mean not what everyday people? What do you mean?
Just working with non-professional actors or working in documentaries. Yeah. She sort of rejected Hollywood from the beginning of her career. When her and Jacques Demy moved to the United States, she started making the most bizarre documentaries as a rejection. Like, I think she, Annalise Obomsawin recently told me, viewed her work as a creative process, not a career, and that comes across, and so it's unfortunate she hasn't been acknowledged, but I think she's actively rejected it as well.
Well, that's good. Then I feel better, because if she actively rejected something, then I'm behind her 100%.
I'm sure she wouldn't say no, though, to having her films exhibited across.
No, but and appreciative audiences and people, because she did seem to be very appreciative.
Yeah.
Of the people who admired her work. It wasn't that she was, "You guys are dumb if you like that."
No, I think it was like a rejection of like the.
Sure.
I don't know, sort of like
crass commercialism.
Well, and the capitalism of those studios too. It's like the star system is pretty gross, and we've seen how predatory it is. And
it gets worse. And the sort of more knowledge you have, it's almost every once in a while you feel like putting your hands in your ears and yelling, and that's not an option. But it's so depressing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even the way those films are constructed, they're not taking chances in the same way she is, and I don't know. I think it would have been boring for her to enter that world.
Oh, I love that. Yes, and I enjoyed, and I found this movie. I wasn't bored ever.
No, it's
fascinating. Which is a pretty amazing thing to say, because if you are to describe it to someone, it's a woman wandering Paris, wondering if she's going to die of cancer. And what does she do? Well, she has coffee with some people and drives.
She exercises.
She plays with her kittens, and I mean,
those kittens. Why don't we talk more about the kittens? Oh my God, the kittens are so great.
I know, they're just roaming around in this wild house. Like, that was just her bedroom they were hanging out in?
It just
was there more of a giant house involved?
No, it seemed like an apartment.
Flat.
Yeah.
Oh, it was quite intriguing how you came through like a courtyard, and I was amazed in that narrow little passageway.
Yep.
Oh, I love those Parisian houses.
That's so great. Selina, what do you think people should be checking out at the retrospective?
Well, they've only released the first half of their program. There's a whole nother section happening in January, but I'm introducing The Gleaners and I on Thursday, December 12th. And I think that's a great entryway into Varda's documentary filmmaking. It's the first time she's using video, and it's really expressive and experimental. She incorporates herself in the film and talks about aging and art history, and poverty and precarity. And so there's a lot going on, but it's really playful and inviting. I think that's a good place to start or to come check out.
Yeah.
I think Happiness I would recommend too, and I think that's coming up in January or February, which is the follow-up to this film, because they're completely different, but thematically very similar.
Cool. What else? Anything else?
I'm scared to reference stuff because I don't know what's coming up at the Cinematheque, but she also did a really fabulous documentary about the Black Panthers, which is one of her more political works.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't identify as a political filmmaker from what I've read, but this one is a really great, like, mid-length documentary about Huey Newton, who was on trial for killing a cop in Oakland. So she's there on the front lines early on and captures it really wonderfully. And that's the cool thing about her. She's actually quite socially progressive, but it's not didactic, or at least most of her films don't, or all of her films are pretty open-ended and open-minded, but the social commentary is there. And this one's kind of probably the most overt of her socially conscious documentaries.
Cool. I want to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
That's great. Does the movie pop?
Oh, yeah.
It pops.
Yeah.
I think so.
I almost feel sad we have to ask that.
I know.
Yes.
We don't have to.
No,
we can
I know.
subvert our own rules.
That's our, yes.
Oh, yeah.
The implied critique here is that it pops, obviously, and you'd have to be a fool to even ask.
Well,
this question.
I think it's fair. We've done, like, we did another film noir in our Noir-vember.
Yes.
And I think it's fair to kind of give people a sense that if you are going to dig in, it probably is good to do a bit of research first, I think, than just going into a film cold like these. Just because I think you're going to enjoy it more with some context. We were discussing that. So I think that I would always say it pops. Yeah. But I think it popped more knowing who she is, what she was trying to do, because it's not just you're not just like sitting down for a story. You know, it's not just a movie with that was a fun story. I didn't expect that ending. You know, it's not like that. Yeah. So I think that I would just say if anyone is going to do this, spend a little bit of time and then go in.
But yeah, it pops.
Yeah, it pops. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. Selina, as our guest of honor, would you like to go first?
Sure. I recommend Annalise Obomsawin's 1988 album, Bush Lady.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was just re-released on Constellation Records in Toronto last year, and I picked up a copy recently, and I've been listening to it a lot, and it's really, really wonderful. It's, for those who don't know, she's also a filmmaker in her late 80s who's been, pioneering the way for many filmmakers over the years, and she also had this really beautiful, secretive music career in the past. So that's why I picked Bush Lady.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Well, I wasn't going to pick this, but then because it is very Vancouver-centric now with our retrospective here, but I saw the new Cindy Sherman show, which we are so lucky to have in Vancouver. Uh-huh. And so if you're here, go see it. If not, spend some time just learning about Cindy Sherman, the photographer. Have you been to see?
I haven't. Do you know when it wraps up? Is it on for a while?
Yeah, I think until March.
Okay.
But
gotta go.
You see, this is the problem. I went a couple of weeks ago because I thought I was going to do what you do. Yeah. Oh, March, yay! And then all of a sudden it's March. But seeing this Cindy Sherman, this photographer that has used her own identity and all of her work exploring feminism and identity, all of these issues with her own self-portraits, and the way you walk through this exhibit at the art gallery, which is quite fun because they want you to take pictures, which I think is really amazing and quite fun.
Well, that's it makes sense.
It does. Yeah, like here's the hashtag, go for it. And so you're kind of watching her age, and then toward the end of the show, she's starting to do some portraits in thinking about aging. And then as we were discussing subverting certain things, like it's really fascinating to see how many fashion designers have hired her to do campaign pains for them and what she does. And part of you was like, well, is that what you were, is that what you were hoping for?
Yeah, it's like Kim Gordon sporting Uggs.
Yes, yeah, exactly. You have, so since this is one female powerhouse of art and creativity. If you're in Vancouver, go and see the Cindy Sherman Show. And if you're not, well, look her up and hopefully you can get to see more of her work.
Cool. I'm going to do, it's a weird combination of both of your...
You're going to go with an Adam Sandler movie now, just to subvert us all.
The weirdest combination of both of your recommendations. I know that she does not pronounce it Alanis, but I'm going to recommend Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill is on Broadway. And I went to go see it.
She doesn't say Alanis? How does she say her name?
Alanis. No, Alanis Morissette says it Alanis, but Alanis Umbamsuan says it like that, not Alanis.
Oh, I
Alanis.
see.
Alanis.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All
Yeah.
right.
She says it with like a beautiful French.
I thought you were going to tell me for the last 20 years I've been saying Alanis Morissette's
Can you
name wrong.
imagine?
Whoa.
No. But sorry, that was my weird connection
Okay.
between the two of them.
All right.
But Jagged Little Pill is on Broadway, and I loved it. The reviews have been sort of like mixed to positive, so I don't know how long it will stay on Broadway. But I think
But she has a new album coming out in a tour, too.
May 1st, 2020,
Yeah.
she has a new album,
Yeah.
and she's also doing a tour for the 25th anniversary of Jagged Little Pill next year. There's only one
With
Canadian
Liz
date.
Fair
It's-
and Garbage, just because we
Sure
are,
is. Yeah.
we cannot cram enough women into this one
Yeah.
episode
I saw
here.
someone write a headline that it is the edgy Lilith Fair, and I was just like, fine, but come on, guys,
Yeah.
let's just come on. Anyway, we can do better, and I think we have learned that we can do better by the women artists in our lives. So, but yes, Jagged Little Pill on Broadway. It's basically like if you've listened to the album and it sort of burrowed its way into your soul, as it did mine when I was 16 years old, and you were like thinking like, there's so many like characters within this album and there's so many stories going on. Diablo Cody, whose movies we have talked about and covered here on the podcast, is the one who wrote the book of the musical and does a great job sort of pulling out all of those sort of storylines. Arguably, it could try and cover too much ground, but I would rather a musical be ambitious than willfully weak. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I had a
Broadway
great time.
always fascinates me because, you'll all of a sudden hear like rumors of the Book of Mormon, and you're what? How could you do a Oh, that's how they did it.
That's how they did it.
I have seen it.
I've seen
and,
it.
I've
it's
missed
wonderful. And also Dear Evan Hansen, which has never toured, as far as I know, yet.
We saw it while we were in New York,
And?
actually. It's coming to Vancouver
Oh, it
in
is.
February or March, but we ended up getting rush tickets to it. And I liked it quite a bit, but it's diabolical, frankly. I like Jagged Little Pill more.
Okay. Yeah, just in terms of being a dark subject matter
Yeah.
into a musical is a very fascinating thing to do.
Yeah. Anyway.
Wow. Cool. I feel extremely empowered right now. I
Yeah, Spice World. That should be up next.
We've
Have you done it?
Spice
We did
World?
with Louise.
Yes, with Louise Burns. Yeah, a
yeah,
couple
because
years
of the
ago.
20th anniversary.
for that one.
Yeah, it's
Well, we agree with you on that one.
It's a different kind of empowerment, but yeah.
Definite, yeah.
So
yeah.
go.
But I always feel girl power with you.
Yeah,
Oh.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Girl power. Go see the Varda retrospective at the Pacific Cinematheque.
Sorry.
It will not involve Lisa singing any Spice Girl songs.
Shame.
But,
That is so sad.
I'm so sorry.
That would have really been fun.
You know what? Everyone just call Lisa up and just see if she'll sing to you while you go to the movies. So apparently the retrospective
I'll
through
tell you what
December,
I want, what I really, really want.
January and February, maybe. So that's lots of time. That's
Stop
great.
right now.
Oh my God.
Thank you very much.
You should write the Broadway.
You should definitely do the Broadway musical
Spice
of
Girls.
Spice Girls. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you,
Thank
Selina,
you.
for being here. When is Doxa?
Oh, yeah, Doxa, May 7th to 17th, 2020.
Fantastic.
Wow.
And when
That
will-
is probably coming up for you very quickly, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Too quickly.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. So thank you, everybody, for listening. You can hang out with us on the social medias. You could rate and review us on iTunes. 5 stars.
5 stars. Like a general. But not about war.
But not a general because
Not
we don't
war.
like
We
it.
do not.
Okay.
Things are taking a very surreal turn here, and Andrea Gin is our producer, and good luck editing this one. It's going to be a lot of Spice Girls music to take out. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.